In today's video, I'm going to be talking about a few checklist items to think about before you take any trade you ever take in the foreign exchange, stock market, whatever it is. Some things to think about before you take a trade, so stay tuned. Let's go ahead and get into it right now. Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. My name is Nick, and on my channel I talk about trading, investing, and entrepreneurship, all the sort of realistic approaches to these things because there's a lot of hype and a lot of stuff out there. Today we're going to talk about a lesson that I think is really, really important for any trader, whether you're new or experienced, to think about. Today we're going to be talking about a few checklist items to think about before you take a trade, no matter what market you are talking about or whether you're investing, trading, whatever. So I'm going to go ahead and list out some things here, and we're going to go item by item until we kind of checklist everything that we need to look at before taking a trade. Okay, so item number one is going to sound a little bit cheesy, but it's actually very important. The first thing we need to do before we take any trade on our account is to actually check our mental state. A lot of times people do trades that are just kind of emotionally driven, or they do something really stupid, or, believe it or not, there are people who do it intoxicated, or they do dumb things like that, where they just make a dumb decision and it's kind of like a YOLO bet or something that gets you into huge trouble. The first thing we want to do, if we're actually going to treat this like a business and trade successfully, is we need to treat every trade with respect, and we need to actually be level-headed and focused before we take any trade on our account. Item number two is to make sure that for every single trade you ever place before you put it on your account, you need to know why exactly you are entering. A lot of times if you ask somebody this question, if you kind of ask them, hey, why did you take this trade on pound dollar? They're going to give you some answer and they say, I thought it was going to go up. But that to me is not a proper answer, especially if we're going to be talking about a business. We're trying to trade like a business, right? Well, when you go into a business and some spending is being spent for the business for some reason, there's a detailed reasoning behind every single way. In fact, there's an invoice usually, there's a documentation, there's a reasoning behind that business transaction. Trading should be no different. In fact, I even encourage journaling why you take every single trade before you take it, because I think that's a really good way, especially for new traders, to kind of get the hang of it. So you need a reason for every single entry. You need to find or write down, or even at least mentally think about, why am I taking this trade? What is the entry purpose? Do I think that it has a confluence of multiple technical factors? Do I like the fundamentals that line up with the technicals? All of those things need to go into account when you ask yourself, why am I taking this trade? What is the purpose for entering into this position, whether it is long, short, on any market? Item number three is possibly the most important on this list, but you kind of need to have an entry point before you talk about this, in my view. So before you take your trade, before you enter into a position, you need to ask yourself, what is the risk on this trade? How much am I going to be risking, and what am I comfortable risking with this position that I am willing to take? Because there's a lot of times where people don't answer this question, and then they all of a sudden find themselves in this massive drawdown, or they find themselves taking tons of losses that really pile up, and they just don't know what they're risking or why they're risking it. So before every single trade, whether you're using a stop loss, a mental stop, some other max drawdown technique, something to stop out of your losses or deal with negative trades on your account, you need to have some sort of plan in terms of, what is my risk, what am I comfortable risking, and that sort of thing. So a lot of times people always look at a trade and they say, I think that I'm going to make a bunch of money on this trade, and this is why. And they don't really think about, well, what happens if I'm incorrect? Because even the best traders out there are sometimes just wrong about things. Even the best investors out there can be wrong about a stock. They can be wrong about a company. Warren Buffett, for example, he actually admitted in one of his, I think it was like a year ago or something, he talked about Kraft Heinz, which was a massive loser to his portfolio. And he said, you know what, I think I might have made a mistake with this one. And that's okay, because a lot of people actually appreciate that and say, you know what, that's part of trading and investing. Taking losses and understanding when you're wrong is a part of the game. And so when we take a trade, it's important for every single one to have some sort of risk that we are comfortable taking and we acknowledge before we get into the position. If you're not comfortable losing 50% on one single trade, you probably shouldn't take that trade. Just something to think about. The next key component to think about before you take any trade is, what is your exit plan? So we talked about, if things go against you, if things you take a trade and it goes against you, you're going to stop out, max drawdown, whatever, you need to have a plan there for sure. The other side of that, though, is what if things go in your favor? Whether they go in your favor or against you, it's important that we know exactly what our exit criteria or exit plan is. For example, I have a trailing stop strategy that I use, where basically if I get long, I'm trailing that stop up as much as I possibly can, locking in gains and locking in that trade as it goes in my favor. The exit criteria for that would be as soon as my trailing stop gets hit, I'm triggered out of the trade and I can go look for something else to trade, or maybe not. I can, take my profits, do whatever. That's an important component to that strategy, is knowing when you are going to get out of the trade before you even get in. What kind of criteria is going to trigger you out of the trade if it's right, and what's going to trigger you out of the trade if it is incorrect and goes against you and it's not a winning trade for you. Okay, so the final one is actually one that I think a lot of people don't really think about until they all of a sudden find themselves in a struggle situation. So the last one is going to be talking, if you're a short-term trader, this mostly pertains to you. It's important that as a short-term trader, if you're going to be trading intraday or even just a few days at a time, it's important to think about big news that may be on the horizon for the currency pair or stock that you are looking at. For example, if you're trading a stock and all of a sudden earnings are coming out on that Friday and you didn't think about that, well, that might significantly move the market that you're trading up or down, and you may not have wanted to deal with that in your trade. So taking a look at and considering the upcoming news for a particular market, or at least the scheduled news for a market that you're trading, is something to think about, especially for those of you guys who are trading shorter time frames, looking at those 1 hour, maybe 30-minute charts. A big news spike can really cause that market to move one way or the other. So guys, I hope you got something out of this video. Basically, a couple key things to think about before you take a trade on your account, at least from my perspective, my opinion. Let me know what you think. Is there anything I missed down below in the comments? Thanks so much for watching. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you back in the next video.